The story starts with Matthew 5, verses 38 and to 39. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person. The story takes place during the time of slavery in Russia. There were good slave owners and there were bad slave owners. The good slave owners feared God and did good to their slaves. However, the bad slave owners would be brutal and cruel to their slaves. The most barbarous and treacherous slave owners were those who were once slaves themselves. One such person is Michael. Michael had lots of land and water and food, and he did not need to be cruel to his slaves to be happy. However, he still was cruel to them because he was filled with envy, jealousy, and was deeply sunk in sin. Michael made his slaves work even during the Easter holiday and made them work more than the law allowed. So one day, all the slaves couldn't bear it anymore, so they met together secretly after their work. They decided to talk to Michael's superior and complain. But however, it didn't change the situation, and when Michael found out, Michael made them work even harder. The slaves then met again the next day after work and tried to determine what they should do. One man, Vasily, stood up and said, "Brothers, we cannot bear this any longer. It is better that we perish than suffer like this. We should kill Michael. We should kill him because he's the devil in human form, and even God would kill someone like this person." And so they all determined to kill Michael the next day. They decided that when Michael comes the next day, they would push him off the horse and hit him with an axe. The next day, Michael came and visited the slaves. But when he visited the slaves, the next day Michael visited the slaves on a horse. And then the next day Michael visited the slaves on his horse. But when Michael visited the slaves, all of them ran away in fear and hid themselves. And so Michael examined the work of some of them and whipped some and flogged some. Michael flogged Vasily because his work was done inadequately in Michael's eyes. So after the workday, the slaves gathered together and said, Vasily stood up and said, "What happened? We were supposed to kill Michael, but you all ran away in fear." And so Vasily encouraged them even more to kill Michael the next day. So the slaves were determined to kill Michael the next day. The next day came, and Michael said to his noblemen, "Go check on the slaves and tell me how they're doing. Also tell me what they say about me. If they're cursing me, then I'd like to know." And so the noblemen went to the slaves and checked their work and came back and gave Michael a report. The nobleman said to Michael, everybody was cursing you and everyone was bitter in their work. And Michael said, "And how about Vasily? Vasily cursed you the most, and he was not doing his work very well." And so Michael laughed and said, "Ha ha ha, I like it when my slaves hate me and curse me." And so, but then the nobleman said, "There's one person who didn't curse you though. His name is Peter. When I first visited him, he waved salutations to me very friendly, and he was working very diligently and was singing hymns and songs to encourage himself. And when Michael heard this, he said, I'm conquered. How can one of my slaves be happy? And so Michael decided to visit the slaves by himself, for himself. And so Michael visited the slaves. So Michael got on his horse and visited the slaves. When Michael got to the brickyard where the slaves were working, all of the slaves ran away in fear again. And so Michael went to the edge of the field and tried to get off his horse. But as he was getting off his horse, the horse moved and tried to go away. And so Michael fell off his horse and landed on a picket fence. And the picket went through his stomach and killed him. And so Michael was dead, and his dead body was laying on the ground. And all the slaves were afraid of what to do with the body. But Peter stood up and was brave enough to get the body and bury it. And so the moral of the story is, God's power is manifested not in evil, but for good. I should clarify the conclusion. So, after Michael died, there was a new slave owner, and the slave owner released all of the slaves and gave them a happy life. And so it is displayed. So God's power is displayed not in evil, but in good.